Good morning, everybody, and I want to welcome you to the next monthly Oasis webinar for the month of June. And we are looking forward to welcoming Mr. Chris Scrivener today. Chris is from company DM Pro, and he's going to talk to us about DUET, which is expenses and timesheets management. There are also some other areas to DUET, but we won't be covering those today, perhaps in the next webinar. So really expenses and timesheets and how this will link back to your Opera system and how you can use this for your workforce. So without any further ado, I'm going to pass you over to Chris. Chris, can you just unmute yourself if you don't mind, and share your screen, and then Chris will take over and talk to us about DUET. At the end, I will have a small question and answer section. So if you've got any questions, keep them for that or type them in the chat in the meantime, and we'll pick those up when we get to that section. So thank you very much, Chris. Over to you.
Okay, thanks very much, Bruce. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to show you a bit of what DUET can do and how it interacts with Opera. DUET is a mobile-friendly system based in a browser. If you can see here, I've got a normal web browser open that's running DUET, and also on the right-hand side of the screen, there's a mobile phone simulation of DUET as well. It's very simple to install and deploy to users. You'll see as I go through, I'll look at a user record and how it gets sent out to the user. Basically, they'll get an email that they click. It will install itself on their mobile device, and you log in with the username. Very, very simple. No app store, nothing to do. Very easy to manage. So on the left-hand side, you can see I've got a browser showing me this is the full DUET system. It's got service desk, requisitions. We're going to be looking at timesheets and expenses. So to make this easier to do, what I'll do is log in as a user called the admin user. And this would only apply really when you set the system up in the first place. Let's go to admin. This is necessary because timesheets and expenses really consist of two parts. There's perhaps the mobile user who would enter the timesheet and the expense, and then the probably office-based manager who would do the approval or decline any of those entries. So we need to see this call and response going on here. So what I want to do is have a quick look at what we call organization. Now in here, this defines your company. At the moment, I'm set up to be a mimic of the Orion Vehicle Leasing, the company Z in good old Opera. You can set up your colors, and what we need to look at here is the users. So under administration, I've got users. If any of you are familiar with Company Z, these are some of the users within Opera's Company Z. And the ones we're going to need to look at today would be a manager, this Mr. Richard Godson, and Liz Gins here, who is a user. Liz enters the timesheets and the expenses. Richard approves them, but can also enter his own timesheets and expenses. So if I open up Richard's record, there's details about Richard here. You give him a login ID, and this would be your namespace in the cloud, and the email for Richard. So when I save his record, it will send him an email to this address and give him all the login details. He clicks the button, DUET gets installed, and he's working. But what we need to know is in something like timesheets and expenses, we control that by saying which applications Richard has access to, and we're only today looking at timesheets and expense, so the others are just turned off. And in timesheets, we want to know about the role within DUET that Richard plays. Now, he can enter timesheets, a 10-minute interval, his daily time is not validated, no minimum duration, and we don't validate the period. What we do want to know, however, is that Richard Godson can approve timesheets. That's a yes. And if Richard enters a timesheet, who will approve his timesheets? Obviously, you probably don't want him checking his own. The same applies to expenses. So if Liz sends an expense in, Richard Godson can approve them. But if Richard enters an expense, Harold Foster approves them. And that's really all there is to it. It's just controlling who enters and who approves who. So if you've got teams of people, you can set different approvers for different users. So let's go back here. Let's look at Liz. So Liz is the same. She gets a login name, and under timesheets, Liz is set up to enter in 15-minute blocks of time, but you can set this to be whatever you like, whatever you normally use. And validate each day. So when Liz is working, every day is validated and she must enter a minimum of 5 hours. But again, you can set any values you like to this for individual users. The period, and period could be anything you set up, a day, a week, a month, whatever you want to do. If you're going to link to Opera Payroll, the periods would normally be matching whatever the Opera Payroll periods were. You can also do what's called a carry forward of timesheet entries. So if Liz is somebody who normally works on the same things week in, week out, rather than her entering all the background data again, she can opt to carry forward the information from this week to next week, but without the hours. So it'd be all headings for it. And it doesn't put the hours in case there's going to be a mistake. She re-enters them for each period, but it cuts down a lot of the work. Now, what it knows under timesheets for Liz is that the timesheet approver here is Richard Godson. And the same would apply for expenses. Expense approval is required for Liz. Liz cannot approve expenses herself, but that's done again by Richard here. So we're going to be looking at Liz and Richard actually working through this. Okay, I'll sign in as Richard on this system. Okay, so I've turned off the other applications for Richard. So now his service desk is gone and all he's really got in here is the system itself, timesheets and expenses. He has a little bit of admin because Richard as a manager is allowed to create things like expense types, claim types, timesheet periods. Whereas if we go in over here as Liz, let's just drop this down. There she is. The screen for Liz only has her timesheets and expenses. Calendar is there because in timesheets, if Liz books in holiday times, it can auto-fill the timesheets for her. Right, so we've got timesheets and we've got expenses. In the background, I've got a copy of Opera sitting here. And hopefully this is something you all recognise. You would have an extra set in here of what's called the DUET link. And under here, you've got facilities to import timesheets from DUET, expenses, there's requisitions and service desk. So when we input things today, you'd be able to see them coming up under the import here. When you import timesheets and expenses, you've got some choices. You can go into payroll, you can go into costing. You can go into both if you want to. Expenses, you can go into payroll, nominal, cash book and costing. Depends how you book in your expenses. So we'll leave that sitting there. and let's have a look at it actually working. Now, for Opera, you might want your timesheet users and your expense users to add some extra data. For instance, if you're going to go into Opera, where's it going to get the job codes from? So what you can do in DUET is set up what we call dimensions, and I've named these, in this case, job and task. So if I have a look at job, you should see here, again, if you're familiar with Company Z, I've got a representation of the Opera job costing codes in here. They're very simple. It's just really the code and the name. And these are imported from Pegasus. You don't have to enter them in here manually. You can export them to a CSV and upload it in here, or you can download from DUET as well. You've also got the tasks. So again, it's a kind of tree of going from project or job down to tasks. Now, the biggest problem we find when we have sites that are deploying timesheet and expense, the person on the timesheet may really have no idea of Opera itself. They're just filling in a timesheet. And if you want to cut down on user errors, what you can do within the jobs, let's take this advanced fleet service agreement. You don't want to show all of your users all of these codes on their mobile. Chances are they'll pick the wrong one. So what you can do, you can limit it. You can say, right, only certain users will see this code. And here's our list of users, so we can simply tick who can actually see that code. Liz has got that one there. Also, if Liz can see that code, there might be many tasks associated with the advanced fleet service agreement. To stop her booking the wrong ones, you can say, well, actually, Liz doesn't do any ordering from supplier. She doesn't agree import duties. She can only book to these tasks. So you can really cut down the potential for errors within the system. Okay, let's have a look at it actually working. So what we'll do, we'll go over to Liz's side of the system, and we'll look at first at timesheets. Now, for a user entering timesheets, we give them several different options. Usually they fix on the one that they like best that suits their working method. If you've got remote workers, some people may enter time literally as they go, a quick entry. Others might book in their time today. So at the end of the day, they book it all in. Other people will leave it all till the end of the week or end of the period and book it all into a timesheet here. So let's show you basically how these work. A quick entry, it says, okay, quick entry, but for what day? So it's going to assume that we're here, but you could be booking in yesterday's, whatever you like here. You just click the day that you want. If you wanted it to be yesterday, you just click that. Up come those list of jobs. Now you don't have to use jobs. If you don't need any of this within the system, you just turn the jobs off. Liz wouldn't be asked these questions. It'll be straight into the time. But if you want to know where the time went, let's say she was working on advanced fleet. There are the tasks that we've assigned and allowed her to see. Green model specification, Wednesday, duration, how long did you spend doing that? And you can book in here. We booked 5 hours. There we are. And she can also put in notes, reasons why she did that. And there's your entry done. Now, if it was today, it immediately goes straight into today, pulls up the code, the task, you can already see one there. Today is the 27th, not the 26th, so it's saying no time recorded. So let's book in for today, and we'll book in 3 hours, 30 minutes. It's in 15-minute blocks as per her user configuration. and we save. Okay, you can see 3 hours 30 booked for that. If she was also today doing some work on something else, you can just click the plus button and say what it was. Was it the same contract but a different task? Did a test drive. Okay, there's your test drive. Click here. Duration. I was out there for a nice 3 hour drive. And save. So now you're getting a build up for today. Right, if we went to current, current is a slightly different view. Some users don't like to go through day by day by day. They just want a list of the days in the period shown here, and you click in and put in the time. Now you'll notice that Wednesday and Thursday are in green. That is because they have met the 5 hour daily rule for Liz. Monday and Tuesday, we're still short. So we can just click on Monday. And again, we go through the same idea. Was it the same Advanced Fleet Service contract? Or maybe something completely different? We'll go for this one here, upgrade, customer final approval. And we'll put in some time on that. 5 hours. And save. Back to our screen. Monday is now green. All we've got to do is worry about Tuesday. And this is job done. So we'll put in some work on Tuesday. 5 hours and 45 minutes. Bit of overtime there. Okay, we're now green. We need a bit more because we've got 2 hours 45 and 3 entries. I'll put it in there. It's giving you all the figures of what's right and wrong within here. And we'll save. Okay, we've got 3 entries in here. We'll look at timesheet. So that was current. So we've done quick, today, and current. Timesheet. So this one is looking down the actual periods that are defined within the system. Mine is set into week numbers. We've got some periods that have been entered and approved. Period 59 has been submitted but not yet approved. Period 60, we can just open it up there. And there again are the days of the period, and we can start to enter. This time we can do it a slightly different way because we have some users where they'll be doing the same work for the whole of the week or for 3 days of the week, and it's a bit painful to start going and clicking through each day. So you can just pull up what's called entry. It knows that she's been working on this one before, but you could add another one, or you can just click here. And you'll get a screen that looks like this. So you've got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and so on. Now, you can use this selector here, and you can say, right, include weekends or not. I'll say not. Click that. Now it's marked all of those days, and we just edit duration, and we'll give us 6 hours 30 for the whole week. And there we are, it's done every day. And we can go back. Now, all the days are now green, therefore we can submit the timesheets. But you can go back into this entry screen and you can edit any of the individual days. If it wasn't 6 hours 30 on Wednesday, you just click that line and you say, no, in fact, on that line, I only did 5 hours 45 and save. And you can change anything you like within that screen there. Obviously, you can split across this. You've got several columns because you might be working on different projects within that same day as well. They all really are going into exactly the same entry. They're just displayed in a slightly different way. So we've got our timesheet in and we're in a position now to submit that. So first of all, you could copy these timesheet entries. And what that will do, it will move them forward into the next period. So if Liz knows she's going to be going back to the same contract, same place next week, it'll prepare everything for her. All she would do is enter duration. I'll submit. And again, she's just asked here, would you like to carry this forward to the next period? I don't need to. Okay, timesheet has been submitted. So that's sitting now, waiting for Richard on this side to do something about it. Now, to help Liz track all of this, you'll see here, you've got a submitted timesheet. You've got a button here, which we call our items menu, and it will give you some options here. You can look at the timesheet history, when you input it, when it was submitted, and you've also got this button called process. This tells Liz who she's waiting for, so she can see that it's gone to Richard, and either Richard or Andrew could approve it. So let's go over and see what's happened on the other side. So I'll flip over to Richard. If I open up the system branch, you can see here there's a badge with notifications in it. There are 10 notifications. What we should see here, that he's got a timesheet coming in from Liz requiring approval. Now Richard has a choice. He could pick up the approvals waiting from notifications, or if you open the timesheet branch, you'll see there's an approval section here with a badge in it. There are 9 approvals waiting for him to do. What if I go from notifications? There's no right or wrong to how you work. It just depends for each user which they prefer. You can just click on the notification here, and it will bring up a list of all the approvals that Richard has to do, but it's opened up the one that notification was about. So there is Liz Jin's timesheet, 31 hours 45, and now Richard can begin to actually do the work. He can look at the timesheet history, see when it was created, when it was submitted. He can make any comments that he wants to. So he could say, thanks Liz, reviewing now. Save that away in the comments list. And it will start to build up a comment history here. So to do the review, he can simply say approve the timesheet, query the timesheet. If he wants to look at the timesheet, he clicks this icon and it brings up the entire timesheet. He can look at the entries in here to see exactly what's gone on within those. It's exactly the same view as Liz had when she was entering it. So all the information is there. If he's happy, he can approve or query from here. But if he's decided not to go in there, if he knows basically what it's about, he can go straight in here and approve the timesheet. But before I do that, the approve would be the easy option. Let's query it. So when you query it, it's going to send a message back to Liz to try and get her to deal with an issue. So can you send PO details for the time? It could be send me a copy of the customer's signature on the sheet, send me a photograph of the paper sheet, whatever you want to do. Right, over on the other side, let's shut this down on Richard's side. Back to Liz. System for Liz, notifications. Okay, Liz can see that there's a query coming on her timesheet. She can just click that to open the timesheet. There it is. It says it's been queried. Now what's going on here? Okay, timesheet comments. Okay, reviewing now. Can you send PO details? Okay, PO ref 84567 and send. Okay, that's gone back, and Liz can now choose to resubmit the timesheet. Copy forward the entries again if she wants to. We don't need to do that. Timesheet has been resubmitted. Back over to Richard, notifications. Okay, it's been resubmitted and requires your approval. Let's open it up. Let's have a look at the history. Created, submitted, queried, coming back again. Let's look at the comments, see if we can get the answer to the question. Okay, now we've got our reference in there and we can approve. All okay. Back it goes. And that drops out of the list of approvals that are waiting for Richard's attention. Back over on the mobile, another notification will come in. Thank you, all approved. Timesheet approved. And this will be building up a list here of all the timesheets. So if she looks in here now, you can see there's a submitted one still not done, but this latest one has been approved. There's a pending waiting to go. So we're pretty well through the timesheet and approval process. Some of the things people would want, if you were, for instance, Richard, and you're approving many timesheets, sometimes you get a situation where you want to find out which of your users has not submitted. You might want to G them up a little bit. You've got a load of reports built in here. Now the reports list will only show you the modules that you've been activated. So Richard is only activated at the moment for timesheet and expense, but something like a timesheet status report would be useful for him. We can run the report and it will give us a list of all the users and the week commencing and whether they're pending, approved, submitted. He can use this spyglass. I only want to look for Liz. That's purely now Liz and all of the periods, what he's actually got. So you can pare this down. You can also get rid of some of the things you don't want on here. So maybe you're not really, there's probably not much in here, but this is the payroll reference number. If I didn't want to see that, I've got some filters and I could say, okay, user reference. I'll turn that off and run the report. And now you've got the report without that on. You could also choose to download that. I could download all of that to a CSV file. If I want to pop it into Excel, I can go directly to Excel. Let's drop that file down. There we are. We'll get a Excel or CSV list of all that. So very easy to export, import from the system. Okay, you could get timesheet detail. Awful lot of information on this. We try and make the default report give you as much as it can, and then you can use the filtering system to take out the things that you actually don't want to see. And you've got some summaries here. Okay, on the other side, Liz also has some reports. So Liz could get a summary of all the detail. I don't know if you noticed, but on Richard's side, when he ran the report, it's showing him the timesheet information for all of his users. Obviously, you don't want Liz, when she runs the same report, to be looking at everyone else's time. So if she runs a timesheet detail report, this is restricted to just Liz, no one else on here. Again, nice and easy for her. Okay, I hope that's all making sense so far. Let's have a look at a similar idea in expenses. So I'll close up timesheet. Oh, by the way, on all of these branches, you'll see a thing called an offline mode. So there are occasions, obviously, when you won't get an internet connection on your mobile device. You can run offline. So if you get a no connection message, you can click offline. You can still enter your timesheets. Obviously, you can't send them to Richard because you've got no internet connection. But basically, entry is still okay. When you get back online, they'll get sent over to him. This applies in all the modules, expenses as well. This on Richard's side also has a setup here for periods. This is where you set all the actual timesheet periods, and you can mark them opened and closed. So this again would limit the timesheet view that Liz gets on this side. So when she asks for timesheets, it'll only be showing her open timesheets. She cannot enter into things that have been closed. This is probably because at this point you've taken them over to the Opera payroll, costing, whatever you've done with the data. So let's have a look at expenses. Now, I'll stay on this side for a moment because expenses is slightly more complicated in that what you want to do is have expense types, because obviously there are many different types of things that you could incur an expense for. You can create as many as you like, and these tables allow you to have some rules around those. So let's look at, say, hotel overnight accommodation. Some simple rules in here: code, description, currency, tax rate. Obviously, different things in expenses apply at different tax rates, and one of the big problems with expenses is to get a gross total and work out actually what the net and true VAT are. So by breaking it down into types of expense, you can set all the appropriate VAT rates. Whether or not a receipt is required, a yes or no. So these are simple choices: yes, no. So I presume overnight accommodation hotel, we want yes for a receipt required. Quantity state, editable, or is it fixed at nights? So normally the unit would say nights, but you can allow the user to edit that if they want to. It could be, for instance, they booked a week, so it's 1 week. Quantity entry, price entered is unit price, or you can set it to do total price. We'll go for unit, and the system will calculate net, VAT and gross for that. If it's a hotel bill, you'd probably go for gross because that'll be on the bottom of the hotel bill, but it works either way. The amount state editable or not, or you can set a default price. You'll see that being used in a minute when I get on to doing personal mileage, because you're probably limited to maybe 45 pence a mile or something. You can't let the user start overwriting the mileage rate. And you could put in a default amount. It may be you've got a maximum charge for a hotel, so you could enter that in here. Also, dimensions 1 to 5 and 1 to 3 required. Dimensions are the, in Opera terms, they would be the job and the task. You can force the user to input those if you want to. So you start to be able to say what the expense was incurred for, and that would enable you to get it through into job costing, etc. Let's save that one away, and let's have a look at a mileage one. I've got two types here: mileage, non-company car; mileage, company car. So if you're going for mileage in your own car, we can set that up. Beyond the scope of that, receipt required, no. Quantity state editable, miles. Price is the unit price. It's read only, and we're set in the expense type here at 45 pence. The user can't overwrite that. So again, we're starting to control what they can put in. On and on here, sundries, foreign travel, food, whatever you have as expense types. You've probably got these set up in some spreadsheet or something at the moment, or you've got codes for these. There is also, on the expense type, you can put in this account code. So this would probably represent in Opera one of your account codes. Anything you can contain within this data that makes it simpler to go through into Opera, less editing, less mistakes, it's all good. So those are your expense types. Now, when you come to fill in the claim form, it may be that you have the user fill in more than one claim form. You might have a separate claim for mileage and then a claim for general expenses. And these come under the claim types. Now, here's some examples. So they've got a mileage claim set up, but also they've got a petty cash claim. Maybe some of the users get a petty cash float and you want a separate claim for things that they've used the petty cash for. A Ryan card, that's a company credit card. So if they're issued with a company credit card and they've got to go and match the incoming statement, you can actually send them an CSV of the entries on the credit card, and then they will pre-fill up the DUET expense tables, and the user goes in and makes comments on them. Because obviously what's not on the credit card bill is what they were used for, i.e. the Opera job number, the Opera task, and perhaps the reason why, the comment from the user. It's got the date and the amount, that's fine. So let's have a look at something like general expenses. Now the key thing here is the code and name, but also whether or not the user is expecting a repayment, yes or no. So company credit card, you want them keyed in, but you're not going to be repaying them. So that's the key thing on this one, expense required, yes or no. And there we have our data setup done, which should pretty well mirror whatever you're using at the moment. It's the expense going on to a claim, going forward into the accounts. So let's revisit our user on this side and get Liz to look at expenses. Again, a bit like the timesheet, you've got a user who would like to enter in what we call a quick entry style. They go into McDonald's, they buy their lunchtime Big Mac and chips, they take a photo of the receipt there and then and enter it. That's it, done. Other people will keep all their receipts in their pocket. At the end of the week or end of the period, out they'll all come onto the table and they'll key them all in as expenses in one go. You can mix up the way you want to work, up to you. As long as it all gets keyed in, goes on a claim, that's fine. Let's do a quick entry. This is okay. What claim type does this expense belong to? So it's a general expense, and I'm going to book in some meals, shop, restaurant, takeaway food. Reference. Now the reference can really be anything you like. It could be the receipt number, but a lot of people don't bother with that because what we're going to do is the attachments, and you can actually click this to choose an attachment. So it'll pull up from your phone anything that you've keyed in. Let's get a till receipt here. Or if you're on a real mobile device rather than my simulation, you've got the camera button and it'll open your camera and you take your picture and that's it, done. You've got a drop down here that you just check you've got the right record. in there. So your reference could be the reason why you're doing this. So it could be lunch, waiting for client. Where from? Now this is a free entry field. You can type in what you like, or you can click this icon, and what DUET does is to remember anything you've ever typed in here before. So where was it? So it was in Fred's Bakery. But if you type something else in there, Fred's Bakery in Luton, it'll remember that for next time. So we're trying to save the user entering stuff on the mobile device. You haven't got a very big keyboard, things can go wrong. Right, expense type and what for. Again, that might be a reason why you had this. Again, click in something here. Let's see, for the NEC exhibition, it will remember anything you type, date incurred, quantity, amount. So the amount from your bill, £12.60. It knows the expense type, so it can work out the net VAT and gross. If you want them to key in the Opera job and task details, they go to analysis and select the job. Back we come into the Pegasus details and the phase. This was to do with agree the extras. So there's all the data in there. If you've made it mandatory for those to go in this, they won't be allowed to save without keying in the Pegasus details as well. And that expense has gone in. Now, like the timesheets, you don't have to do them one by one. You can go into an expense list here, and it will show you all the expenses you've keyed in currently, and you can add directly from here. Except that in the expense list, it has some additional functions. So if we look down here, we can see that on the 10th of May, Liz made a visit home to Newcastle Central Station, and it looks like she's used some mileage. Now, if she happens to be going there again, rather than key all that in again, you could click the item menu, you could delete it, you could add more attachments, you can add it to a claim, you can create a new line, you can also clone it. So it fills in everything for you, and you go in and change the date. Actually, no, I went the 23rd, but it's the same mileage, 432 miles. Everything else is done. Save. I know when I used to do my expenses, I hated the mileage claim because I'd have to fire up Google Maps every time and say where I started from and where I ended up and put in the mileage. A lot of the visits I would do would be to say, go and see Bruce, and it would always be the same mileage every time. And just made it so much easier to do it this way. So you can have multiple expenses, multiple lines within one expense. So in my example of visiting Bruce, I would have mileage, possibly parking, some food. I put them all in under one heading of visit to Bruce. So one expense can contain multiple lines. So there they are. There's some expenses in there. Now, come whatever, the end of the month, Liz wants to make a claim. So she just goes to claims. It will list all the claims that are already in the system, and you can see there one she's put in there, February. It's got all their expenses from February on it, and whether or not it's been approved. Again, there's this action item menu button, and you can look at claim history, attachments. You can close it, do whatever you like with it. We'll create one. We just create claim, and it says, right, what are you doing here? I'm going to do my general expenses. Liz Gin's claim of 27th of June, save. DUET will go through and it will find all matching expense items that belong to the same claim type. So we can add Fred's Bakery, flight to Glasgow, and some of these will be declined. They're expenses from her last submission that Richard has queried. She's now fixed those, again provided purchase order numbers or reasons why. So she's adding them back here. You don't have to, you can leave them in or out, whatever you want to do. I'll add them back in and it will form the claim. There it is. And we'll now find that's sitting here in a pending state. There's all the items. If she's made a mistake, she can use the delete to take one off. She can add more expenses directly. She can submit it, whatever she wants to do with it. So I will submit this claim. Expense claim has been submitted and it will change status within the system to a submitted claim. Now, where is it? Item menu. Claim process. Where's it gone? Okay. Into here. Let's get the right one up. I've got the wrong button there. Okay. Okay, we've got our attachments. Everything's gone in. Right, over to our approver. Let's go for notifications. Expense claim from Liz Gins has been submitted. Again, the same idea. Richard can click on the note, or in the expense branch, you will see that under approvals, he's got a badge saying 3 to do. There's the submitted expenses. There are the items on the expense. Items menu. What does Richard want to do? Review the claim. You can go and have a look at the whole thing. And it will list each line. There's our 2 new pending ones. There's the previously declined items he sent back. If he's now happy with these, he can say, right, yeah, I approve that one now. I'll approve that one. This one here. Okay, let's have a look. Any attachments? There's nothing in there. Expense history, NEC meals. Okay, let's look at this receipt for that one. Okay, if he's happy with that one, approve that one. But this one, no receipt. I'm going to decline that one. So you go through and you choose what you're happy with. So he has a choice here. He could decline the whole claim, or he can do as we are now, a partial approve. So there we are. We've got our submitted claim. This line's been approved, that one's declined, approved, approved. Now overall, I'll approve the whole claim, but with one declined item. This is because it's a repayment. This is going to want the money back for the things that we are happy with. What will happen, we would be repaying her for the approved items, the 3 approved items, but not for the declined one. She can take that declined expense and resubmit it when she's ready. So I'll do a claim approve. Notes, Liz will need a bill for NEC. And save. And it warns us we're about to approve 3 of 4 expenses at this value. Are you happy with that? Yes, please. Okay, claim approved. You can show approved and declined claims within this list as well. If it's the partial one here, it gets a different colour. So you can quickly see a differentiation between submitted, approved, pending. Let's go and have a look at Liz. Expenses, claims, again in notification. There we are, been part approved. We can open from there, or we can open from the expense tray. There it is. Okay, declined. This can deal with this now. Open up the items menu and remove expense. Okay, I've just got to put a reference in, but what actually happens to it, it goes back into this list of expenses here, and you can resubmit it with the next claim. So there we have a flow through the expenses and claims. If you've turned it on, you can also in claims, when you've marked them as approved, you can mark them as repaid. You'll get a repaid option here. You know, some of the users like to say, okay, what have you approved? And the moment they get it repaid, they clean up their list with a repaid marker. Okay, again on the report side, you've got expense details, expense summaries. Let's run one of those. Let's run an expense summary. Now, it's a big report. It's got the gross net tax in there. You might find that actually you don't really want all of this information. What you'd like to do is get rid of some of it and make something that's reusable every month rather than trying to wade through all of this. So what you can do, you can say, okay, that expense summary looks quite useful, but what I'll do, I'll make a copy of it. Expense summary simplified, whatever you want to call it. Let's see if I can get a spell check up. Now that'll sit down here in the saved reports. So let's pull that up and let's set some filters in here. So what do I need to know? Well, I don't really care about the user reference. The claim account code, don't care. From receipt reference, don't care about that. Don't care about the tax reference. I want to know the job and task. Don't care about currency. I'm not after net and tax. So we're filtering this down now. And let's run that report. Have a look at that. Okay, that's a bit more sensible. You've got it coming down here. That's grouped under general, mileage. I'd really rather have that grouped under user. Okay, report filters. Some groupings here. Let's group on user, and you can set that as the primary group and run the report. And now it's grouped by user. That means it's going to give you some totals as well for Liz and for the claim type. So you can start to mess around with these reports and save them in a format that suits you. Now you can also publish them. So if you've designed some reports that you like and you feel your users would like, or this comes onto you and says, oh, I really want a report that just simply shows me this. I'm getting a bit lost in which timesheets I've done and not done and where my expenses are. You can publish them to a user. So you can take this and you can publish the report. It's now published. So when Liz comes into the system, if she goes to reports, she will have a list of published reports, these designs that you've made up. You've got all your standard ones. She can now run that. The difference being that because she's Liz and not the manager Richard, she only sees data for herself. It makes it nice and easy to do. Okay, so we've run through a list of timesheets. We've run the expenses through. We've done the approvals on both. We've built up some data. We can now have a quick look on the Opera side and look at how some of the data might come in. So there is some setup work in here to do, which Bruce would be able to help you do. This is because obviously in Opera itself, some of you will be using payroll, some will use job costing. You've all got different coding structures. You may have different employee codes set up in here. So there's some configuration work to do around mapping everything in. So how do you map job records to DUET or cost records to DUET? You can edit all of these and say what your account codes are, your pay elements going into payroll, etc., etc. But once you've got it set, that should be it. So it's a kind of one-off coding operation. Once that's done, you can simply choose, for instance, timesheet import. You could go into payroll or into costing. Let's have a look at payroll. Download any new entries. It wants you to log in with a DUET code. You only do this once per session. So I can choose, put in this password. This stops anyone else in Opera being able to run this and see what's going on. Because obviously at this point, it's inputting data for all of the users. Once you're in for the day, you're in. There we are. There's one new one to come in. There it is. There's an entry from Liz Gins. Go through the next. We've got some that have come in but don't match. And reference not found. So basically we've got someone on the DUET side, Ron, who doesn't have a, looks like a payroll reference in there. But it will still take what we can. And you can choose to go in monthly or weekly. I'm not sure what Liz actually is, but we can try that one. Oh, there's no references. Let's do a, might be a monthly. Oh, there we are. Okay, so she's on monthly. And you can say which periods it's to go into, which employees range you want to update, and it will take it over. In there, it's got all of these waiting in the background to go in, and we can import. Now, if I do a report only, it just lets you check all of this before you go in. Normal thing in Opera. And there would be all the data that it's about to import into your payroll for you. So anything wrong in there, you can go back and correct it before it goes in. So the same applies for job costing, and the same logic applies for the expenses. And there we have it. That's basically the gist of the complete cycle, going backwards and forwards. Any questions or issues? I'm sorry it's a quick run through, but we've kind of set an hour for it, and I think we've managed to stay within that.
Yeah, sounds great. That was great. Thank you very much, Chris. Now, anybody got any questions? Now is a good chance to throw anything out there, anything you want to know. I've got a question, Chris, while we're waiting for everybody else to think about it. When you put an expense claim in, the expense claim, when it's imported and approved, where is it paid through? Payroll or through suppliers? Or can you choose which one?
You can choose. It's always the same on the DUET side. It's simply a claim with a load of expense data in it. It's when you come over to the Opera side that you will choose wherever you want things to go.
I see.
Yeah. Is it going to go into payroll? You can see there. Here we are.
Into payroll or costing. I see.
Yeah. You choose where it's to go to. We don't know. We just pull it. You've got a claim and expense data. What do you want to do with it?
That's great. Thank you. That answers my question. Has anybody got any other questions for us?
Okay.
No?
Oh, by the way, the only thing I will mention, for doing the demo, I've used a kind of PC view for the manager here and a mobile view for the person inputting. But the manager, if I log out here, so Richard Godson, who's the manager, if Richard isn't in the office, Richard can log in on his mobile. So let's let him go in here. This is exactly the same set of options, but running on his mobile. It's any device you like, mobile, laptop, tablet, anything you want. So if Richard is out on site or he's at lunch in McDonald's, he could do all of his timesheet approvals sitting in there. There they all are. Makes no difference to DUET where it is. As long as it's in a browser, that's it. You could go home, do it on your home computer, you log in on there. That's it, just a login code.
Just a login. Perfect.
Okay.
I'm going to grab the screen back.
Thank you very much for listening to me. You've got the recording. I'll log out and you guys can carry on.
There we go. Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you for that.
A pleasure. Thank you.
I will make the recording available to everybody at some point this afternoon. I just want to edit it a little bit. In the meantime, please remember, if you go to our website in the customer zone, you'll find a link to the monthly Oasis webinars. I run these at the last Thursday of every month on a different subject. Next month, upcoming on the 25th of July, we have another Pegasus CIS5 webinar, this time on stock and procurement. So would be worth watching if anybody works in the construction industry somewhere. So thank you very much for listening today, and I hope to see you guys on the next one again.